We are going to reconvene. Everybody can find their seats, please.
I'm on vacation.
Yeah, I know, exactly.
Are you on vacation? I got to every day.
Okay.
So it's whether I take
All right, there's a quorum present, so we're going to reconvene, and we've had a request during the break. There are some folks that also have schedules, so I'm going to open this up to a public comment to get us restarted right now. If there's members of the public that would like to speak at this time, please come forward.
Council, Mayor,
Good afternoon.
fancy meeting you all here. I got a couple of things I want to ask your help. One thing, I've been at this 2.5 years. Forget what I paid for the land. I spent $250,000 on engineers and architects. Changed these plans 23 times from what the original concept was. I want to get done or get thrown out, one or the other, right? I'm really worried about the zoning board just tabling it and tabling it and tabling it. I mean, they could table me into the great abyss of politics, and you know that. And I don't know if you guys have any authority over them. Say, just vote one way or the other. You know, tell me in or out. That's simple enough. But I don't know the authority of politics. I'm not a politician. And I don't know the authority you have over the zoning board. That's my first request of you. My second request is, I have 3 meetings this month. Keeping track of this is I'm going to need a secretary just for meetings. Comp plan amendment, zoning, the 6th, the 20th, and the 25th. This was supposed to be what I finished up this month with the council, so I have to look to a special meeting, I hope, if you guys take a vacation, that'll come before July 4th, but after Councilman DeWitt comes back, because I'd like to see the whole council vote on it. That would be a big help, too. I don't know what you can do on any of those matters. I'd like to get both hearings done in June. As it is, I lost my financing, which I have to now, not that I lost it, I have to reapply for it because the date is run on it. Whoever expected this to go 2.5 years? If I was growing a beard this time, it'd be down to my belly. But I got to get it done. I got to get to a point where I'm not paying engineers $350 an hour to sit over here and listen to you guys talk about the fire station every time, which is all very important, but I'm still paying the engineers to sit here. It's very, very costly. And who's going to pay for it? I'll tell you. People are going to pay for it, the people in the units, because all this gets added into the price of the apartments. You guys talk about wanting affordable housing. I agree with you. There's all different levels of affordable housing. In our project, we have a section that's hero mortgages. I don't know if you're familiar with that. I have a mortgage company, so I am familiar with it. Hero mortgages give special concessions in mortgage to school teachers, fire, police, and first responders of all nature. The reason for that is we don't want our city people to live outside the city. You go to Naples and they tell you all your people work in Lehigh Acres, and it's true. But over here, I think we should keep the police, the fire, the school teachers living here. But we can't keep running the cost up on these things. The cost has to stop. So I beseech you to not leave me in the great abyss of the zoning board, and to somehow get somebody to make a decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Other members of the public that would like to speak? And this is going to serve as the second public, just so for later on. Yes, sir. Welcome.
I'm Mark Shapiro. I'm partners with Tony Mansalillo on what I think you all refer to as the Terry Street assemblage. I am also, in addition to being an attorney, I am the financier of the project. So I have put up the money to acquire the project and to pay the various things like architects, engineers, surveys, that sort of thing. And I would like to echo that sentiment, is that if at all possible, and I think we're now getting to the end. I think we have some things set, but I would like to, again, reiterate that hopefully we can get this done in the month of June and have all meetings that are necessary so that we can move forward to the next step and not get bogged down. And what I say by that, I don't think it's fair for us to be bogged down by the work that the city staff is doing downtown, or that our project be put on hold for that. Also, I would like to ask if we can assure that we get the zoning board to hear this case sometime in the near future. It was in front of the zoning board, and I think they tabled any decision pending on the outcome of the comp plan amendment. And then lastly, I would like to say that we have worked very hard on this project. I've been a resident of Southwest Florida myself for 26 years. And we are committed to doing this project and do it the right way. When we met with the planning board, the proposal that's now before you wasn't the original proposal. We worked with them to get a proposal that fit within the vision of what the people in the city wanted. So we're, I think, doing something that the residents want. I know the city is committed to this. They've spent millions and millions in infrastructure to get something in the downtown area. I think that our project fits in with what the vision was all along, that what you all want in the downtown area. And, you know, I wanted to appear in front of you. I don't know that I've personally appeared in front of you. I know Mr. Manzolillo has, to let you know that I am committed to seeing this thing through. And I say that because there have been rumors that, you know, we are just in it to get the approvals in place and then, you know, sell our project. I can tell you that's not the case. We have no intentions of selling the project out. We plan on developing this and see it through to the end. And my personal reputation is on the line to make sure that we do something that's beautiful and that fits in with what the city's vision is.
Thank you, sir. Other members of the public? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Bob McFarlane. I am a developer. Develop mostly in Fort Myers, but other areas of Florida. A lot of affordable housing. We used to purchase a lot of tax-exempt failed bond deals from GE Capital, restore them, take it into a C, take it into a B+. Been involved with shopping centers, largest, busiest shopping center corner in Houston. Been involved with major downtown Dallas, probably the largest towers in downtown Dallas, including the Placid Oil bankruptcy mess with Herbert and Bunker Hunt. Even took a large site, manufacturing site, which is now an historic landmark, which became a U.S. national park. So if you went to Hartford, Connecticut, you would visit the Colt Armory like you would visit Yellowstone. It's the United States National Park. So, okay, we've been around. Fort Myers arrived in 2001, put up the first high-rise on the river called the Beau Rivage, well known. Friends of mine today at the city council said to me back then, we all thought you were crazy. I said, you should have told me back then in 2001. But we were successful. Built Riviera, built Saint-Tropez, just completed the conversion of the Sheraton Harbor, 25 stories, into a senior housing. Now we're doing, we won a beauty contest, and we'll be completing workforce housing or affordable housing. They are defined terms. So just first and foremost, the people that are presented here today, I'm all for it. They've presented things. They've got a lot of money involved. They're first. They should be given the greatest consideration. Just as a brief overview, you've got a wonderful little village area here. All right? I'm sorry. The Italians would say molto sensitivo. You've got to be very sensitive for this area. You've got Hispanics. You've got the river. You've got the Everglades with two state historic buildings. State historic building can be taken into national historic, which means you can get 40% tax credits. You can put retail along the river. You can get new market tax credits. I used to brag I gained the first new market tax credit transaction in the United States. Of course, that's why you have daughters. She corrected me. I got the 6th new market tax credit in the United States. On the historic side, you can get 40% tax credits. Now, let's talk about affordable, or the new word, workforce. Okay, and this is where I ask the city to be sensitive to the people that are presented and to be sensitive to what you're doing going forward. You got a strong Hispanic population. You have these buildings which I've almost referred to as, I don't know, Key West in the 60s. Got a bit of cracker architecture. Got a bit of seaside panhandle. Whoever puts this puppy together, you really gotta be sensitive. And as far as housing, if you have affordable housing, it's quite clear. You have 100% affordable housing. You have 80-20, 80% market, 20% affordable. You have 60-40, 60% market, 40% affordable, or you have 100% affordable. You may want to look at 60-40. And why? If I take that square block and I say that's 100% affordable, and that's what they did after the First World War in Detroit. The cheapest property was near the factory. So they said, oh, 100% affordable, that's where you live. Mostly African Americans moved there, cheap, they could double, triple up on tenancy. 40 years later, it became terrible. Good developers, such as myself, saying, hey, give me a loan, I'm going to knock that all down, and I'm going to make it 100% affordable. The kitchens, the bathrooms, everything's wonderful. And they did it. Except the 100% affordable had a 30, 40-year LURA, land use restriction. So now I took these blocks and I made it 100% affordable. If you're African American and you're poor, you live there. It created the opposite of what Uncle Sam wanted to do. So my urge, request, all it is, I have no standing here, is that, sure, these people which have been here and have done a lot of work and spent a lot of money, they get first consideration. But maybe if it's 100% affordable, maybe you do 60-40. That's on the rental side. You can do ownership side. Ownership side, if the land is near free, maybe they got a $15,000, $17,000 jump on the land. They can get deposit assistance, down payment assistance of $7,500. Keep the property for 10 years. The $7,500 disappears. So now, in addition to rental, 60-40 or whatever you want, you now can do home ownership. You can do it whatever you want. You can do that 60-40. And now you've helped establish that riverfront in the entire neighborhood. Right? So that's my only request, is to take a look at that. You've got a wonderful, wonderful community. My God, what a great place, right? You got the river, you got the arts, you got this wonderful Hispanic community. I mean, you got it all. You got some architecture. You just got to figure out which pieces of architecture are going to fit, so this thing doesn't come out like an amusement park where you go to a gate, you enter, do some stuff, and leave. But it's part, and it blends in, and it is the community.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Other members of the public that would like to speak? Hey, John.
For the record, John Pano, Bonita Springs Downtown Alliance. He forgot to mention monuments in public places. We've got some great monuments and paintings in public places also. I'm just going to relate to you. I do a lot of tours in downtown. I take people from all over, and we walk through downtown. We paddle the river. And one of the most frequent questions I get is, when is the developing going to start? Everybody sees it. Everybody hears it. And visitors and residents alike are waiting to see things happen downtown. If they could come back in the fall and see ground broken, we would have a tremendous season coming in the following year because people would spread the word. I'm just going to ask you guys to please take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Other members of the public? Hey, Kathy.
Hello. Again, for the record, Kathy McGrath. First of all, do all you can to make Tony's project or any other one downtown moving. Everything's been said. The other thing I want to mention is the Weeks property. You know, I've been here a long time, and the people were promised that they would have public access there. And believe me, I bet Mamie Weeks and the rest of her family that are no longer with us are whirling dervishes in their graves. And I believe Ed Weeks has said, too. You hear, well, they haven't really decided what they're going to put there, and then they mention assisted living. I guess that's to get sympathy or something. But please, not only public access work for, but parking. As Ed Weeks said, you need more than 10 parking spaces. And the last thing I want to say, I was going to wait to the end. I always like to do something positive, but I'm afraid the meeting will go so long that you all will leave. You know, nowadays, you know, we hear all the tragedies, the volcanoes and the earthquakes and the tornado and volcanoes and everything, fires, hurricanes. You hear about parents abusing their children terribly, and it trickles down into animals. How about the man in Naples who drowned the little ducklings with a pool skimmer because they were a nuisance?
Good news.
Pardon me?
Good
I'm
news.
going to get to it. I'm going to get to it. Don't worry. Or how about the teacher in Ocala last night who had his students drown a raccoon in the thing? Anyway, here's what's my upper. Last night, Lester Holt frequently does People Who Inspire You. And he talked about this young man. He's 17 years old. He's black. When he was 10, he taught himself to play the piano. When he was 15, he performed at Carnegie Hall, acclaimed. And now he's teaching himself to play the trombone. And he's composing. And oh, by the way, he has one finger on one hand and 4 on the other. And not only that, he had to have both legs amputated when he was a child. And this young man, twinkle in his eye, smile on his face, Mom, I can do that. He's just, you know, we could all learn a lesson. So the next time you have a bad day, the next time someone comes to you and says, oh, come on, do something about this. Think about it. His name was Darius, okay? That's my upper. I think it's an upper, even though with all his infirmities. Isn't that wonderful? Thanks for letting me tell you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kathy. Other members of the public that would like to speak? Okay, seeing none, we are going to move now into mayor and council member items. Item A, Deputy Mayor O'Flynn, green sheet 18050139. Peter.
Yeah, I talked to John about this. Just a quick backup. I had asked for this about over a year ago to have a workshop on downtown because of the fact that, as we've talked, the vision that was presented in the renderings in 2012, 13, 14, whatever it is, does not match up with the code. Things happened, hurricane happened, got delayed. We had a presentation on February 7th, that's 3 months ago. We had a consensus coming at that to move forward, and really what I want to do is to have community development really work hard and get something done with a deadline. Now, let me just mention a few things. The comp plan height we've got now dwarfs the buildings that are in the renderings. The master plan, now this is actually from the presentation that staff gave us in January. The master plan, everything we look at in the sections 6A, 6B, 15A, 15B, whatever. The master plan has not been appropriately adopted as the comp plan map. That's not Peter O'Flynn saying that. That is what staff told us in February. There are questions about density. We have one section, not just a Shangri-La Hotel, that has hotels in it. And it can't right now, because of the way the Land Development Code works, be converted to residential. That's what was in the presentation by staff in February. So the basic obvious point is, and I think there's proper frustration all around, including from yours truly, is that We put a streetscape in place. We had pictures, and John was kind enough to dig them out, and they're great photos, right? We had pictures of what it looks like. And our code, writ large, does not match those pictures. Nothing like it. Nothing like it. Now, are there some good things in the code? Absolutely. That's my impatience, right? My impatience is we spent $30 million downtown. Let's quickly, like last year, get our comp plan and our code lined up with that vision. And if we have questions about the vision, let's settle it once and for all. That will put developers in a position where there's clarity. Right now, there's not clarity. And we talked about a few basic points. One was height, one was form-based code, not as a straitjacket, but general massing, so we had a sense, how high are we going? Density, we talked about parking, and generally we talked about aesthetics. Those are the 5 things we left with, and I'm waiting 3 months, and I know John had a good chat with John yesterday. There's a lot going on in community development, but I jokingly said to John, maybe I should submit my own personal, pay the $3,000, submit my own comp plan amendment, and then we get community development to hustle on the thing. I didn't mean it that way, but I think that we've got, in fairness to everybody, all the comments that have been made, not about a specific project, but this is what we owe, in my view, to the people of Bonita Springs. Nail this down. So that's, and I'd like, John, I don't know if you want to come up, or, I mean, my notion is to have a suggestion as to a definite date that we're done, whether it's a month, 2 months, and does John have the resources? I know Thuriak and Spain's available to him. I believe that they have land planning as well as legal background.
They do have a planner. I don't know if he's with the firm or just
I
someone
thought
they use on a
David
regular
was,
basis.
or
but they do.
whatever. So I mean, I'm not trying to script you here. I'm just suggesting, let's figure out. But that's my point.
I agree with the intent in terms of workload. When we were talking yesterday, I was trying to think of who we'd have and how we do it. Not to let the cat out of the bag, but as soon as I can get some approvals, I'll probably be coming back for additional positions for just on the workload we've got. So if you let me know what you want and how we can handle it, I want to get going too. I agree. There needs to be clarity. And the longer we go with this ambiguity is going to be causing everyone problems.
Right.
You're going to be
It's
hearing
just
from
chaos.
this. Exactly.
Right.
It's organized chaos right
Right.
now. So if we start looking at putting some dates together, just know that right now in terms of workload, we're pretty much buried, but I'm happy to figure out how we can move forward and get some specific dates so at least we know when this is going to be wrapped up sooner rather than later.
Well, maybe Carl or Arlene can get together with you all, but I'm thinking like a month or two, not a year or two.
I would much rather measure this in a short period of months than getting closer to a
Right.
year. I agree. Because not having it done is still adding more stress. So it doesn't matter how strapped resources
Well, there
are.
you go. Right,
It's an additional source of stress for everybody.
right. So,
Can we get an,
Amy?
I mean, we have people like DPZ that's working on this very thing, right? Can we just focus them on a short-term project and just get it done? I mean,
I've got a couple of ideas that if you will let us kick them around and bring something back to you, see what you like best. But know that we're on as short as timeline as we can get this done with.
so maybe on May 22nd we're here?
yeah, can you have
along
the
with the fire.
presentation by May 22nd?
Options shouldn't take that long.
All
You
right.
know, and we might be able to come back
But
at
but
least
you
a
do
handful of
agree-
options at that
well,
point.
does the staff agree and you agree that we don't have a connection between what is supposed to be the vision, the concept, and either our downtown overlay or our land development code there?
You have had some very talented people work on your downtown regulations. Unfortunately, those people have not been asked to look at it holistically. And if they have, it's been so long ago that pieces have been tinkered with and altered that they're no longer in their original state. So its current form does not allow you to, it does not promote you to come up with that plan that was on the cover of the white paper. you might be able to jump through the hoops and connect the dots, but you would have to jump through hoops and connect the dots. And I think that what the goal is that we promote and work people towards the path of least resistance would be that type of design, that type of development. That everybody has generally nodded your head saying that that's what you're looking for redevelopment.
Starting with form-based so that here's our general sense. We're not going to like put you in a straitjacket, but here's our general sense, whether it's one floor, then a setback like in Naples, and then go up two or whatever. Here's our general massing. That's it, you know. And then you have a beauty book of some sort with respect to, and we do have architectural stuff. I mean, no one's acting like there's not stuff in the code, but so there is architectural stuff in the code. And then you have your beauty book, and any developer can come in and look at that, and it's not going to take 2 years, and it's not going to take 5-hour meetings that don't get stuff done, which does nothing but frustrate everyone. And by the way, I know, Greg, you laugh when I always talk about Estero, but Estero does this for everything. And they put that in place when they weren't even a city. They did it under Lee County. And so I'm not suggesting everything. I'm just suggesting where we've spent the $30 million of taxpayer money.
Fred, you had something?
Yeah, number one, I've said longer than a year ago that renderings and all that we had didn't quite match what we were putting in the land development code and all that. Here's my reservations or cautions. I agree that we need to do this quickly, but we got a whole bunch of stuff that we've said ASAP. One of them is a thing of trying to implement architectural review in the zoning process. And then there was some subsets of that. As part of that workshop, we agreed that we would move out and at least as a temporary big improvement on stormwater, even though that's kind of, it's related to zoning. We said we'd get going and adopt Collier's standards,
Something like
basically.
that.
So the only thing that concerns me is I'm not sure how you do the form. The thing we all have the least experience with is this form-based code. I would feel more comfortable fixing what we got and take a little more time to do that part of it. I think it's a good thing. I think the one thing we have to realize is that based on that conference they had that Randy held down in Fort Myers, the future of the cities, if everybody remembers, because I know at least 4 or 5 of us went to it, was commercial on the ground floor, ideally. Then they tended to have offices, in most cases, on the next floor, and a couple floors of housing, either condos, rental, or whatever. And one thing about it, the land costs a lot of money, and I think the developers are going to try and go as tall as they can go within the guidelines of what they're working at, because that produces the best profit on the land that they're developing because of land costs, but also helps the ad valorem. So I don't have a problem with doing this as long as it doesn't screw up anything that's already in the pipeline, A, and B, I think we should be a little more cautious on that, the element of the form-based code, so we all understand, because we could adopt something with the very best of intentions, and because we're not as familiar with it, have unintended bad results, which hurts the development of Old 41, which we're all trying to get done because we've got a big investment of $30 million we're trying to get back. But that's my, I'm not against it, I just have reservations at how we do it and fit it in with all these other, as soon as we can get them done, things, which.
Well, Peter?
Yeah, my frustration with this is, and I mean that professionally, not personally, is that we agreed on a form-based code to move forward with it, not to adopt it, but to move forward. We agreed 3 months ago. So I don't want to get, and I'm not suggesting that Fred's doing this, but I don't want to get jammed because, oh, now, you know, so it's been, understand you have a lot to work on. I think the best thing is what John suggested. Have John talk to Carl and Arlene and See what?
We could come back on the 22nd with a methodology of how we get the resources needed. We can look at the
Right.
existing contracts that we have with different groups, as well as talking with DPC. There's some opportunities there, and also talking with CH as well. Let's see what, and also talk with David Theriak about what our best resources are, and bring a recommendation back to the 22nd at a very high level.
All right.
And then by the first meeting in June, hopefully upon your approval on the 22nd, we'll be able to begin a conversation with those folks and get a game plan together of a timeline that we could put on the first meeting in
I'm
June.
fine with that.
When we do that,
Fred?
will you make sure that Theriak factors in all these
I
other
Theriak is our first step because there was a
priorities that we're
recommendation.
working on already?
Well,
That's my
I
only
know I only allotted half an hour to the objectives, but these priorities that we're talking about should be discussed at our 22nd meeting when we look at everything all together. I'm in favor of expediting this, but I think we should talk about it on the 22nd with input from the staff. So we're going to need as much input from you as we do from the council when we review those objectives.
And the
Yeah.
only other suggestion I had, not for you, John, but just generally for the city, is somehow we need some better outreach, because people don't understand how fouled up this thing is. You know, they understandably, they come in here and say, "What are you guys waiting for?" All right? Well, this is what we're waiting for. You know?
And we also have to understand, because this has come up with a specific project, is the comprehensive plan and how, and I've said from the beginning, how do these overlays go with the land development code and go with the comprehensive plan, because they are linked, but sometimes when you read the individual parts of that, it doesn't seem like that. The people who are not in the sand in here don't understand that, so we need to get that across.
To both of those statements, I think the biggest problem is that we've just been told to make it work, and to the greatest extent possible, just try to make it work. So you don't see how fouled up portions of it are, because we try to connect the dots to the greatest extent possible. But you're right, it runs into problems when
Exactly. It's all integrated, and this is why this vision is really important, because unless you take all those pieces together, you can't make, it's hard, it's next to impossible to make a decision according to the law, the rules. So that's where we really need some more outreach.
Well, and while we're putting this all together to get more clarity, because, we do need clarity, we do have a lot of investors downtown, and more that want to come in. And, it's very frustrating for them to come in and just keep getting pushed off because it's not the vision of the council, when we already have ordinances and laws that say this is what can be built. But if it's not to what our vision is, we're pushing it back, but it's not fair to them because they're designing it to what is allowed to be built right
Who
now.
has pushed who back when? Tell me when.
There's been a lot recently. There's been a lot of having to table it, push it back,
Well,
especially with the Terry Street assemblage.
Well, let me. So this is the green sheet for the zoning board yesterday. All right. It is staff's opinion, with the applicant's concurrence, that is premature to hear this case until the final text amendment language is established. That's what the zoning board was told yesterday. They were told it's staff's opinion. Excuse me. Excuse
No,
me,
no,
sir.
no, no, we don't
Excuse
do
me,
that
sir.
here.
Excuse me, sir. John, am I reading the right thing? It's from May 9th?
that's the memo that was given to the zoning board. Yes, sir.
It's staff's opinion, with the applicant's concurrence, that is premature to hear this case until the final text amendment language is established. Just putting that out there. That's all.
But there was talk to push it back further until we voted on it. And staff had said that was not necessary. It could be done concurrently.
I haven't watched the tape. I'm telling you that it was said that, I believe it was said, or I hear a buzz around town, if I didn't hear it today, that the zoning board, quote unquote, pushed this back yesterday. No, that is not the fact. It's incorrect.
Audrey, you were there, right?
Yes, it was, and there's two things in the memo.
Excuse me a second. Go ahead.
All right, go ahead. And when you're
No,
done,
no,
I
no.
have some stuff to say.
Go ahead.
I
So-
do not have the memorandum in front of me.
Right.
The memorandum, so two things were passed out during the meeting. It was a continuation meeting. We knew we could not go forward yesterday
Right.
with the zoning hearing to start the zoning case and putting them on the clock because of the comprehensive plan change. The change is something that was requested through vetting, through staff, and I could not modify the title block to get new language in that we felt in an abundance of caution would be appropriate to get in. The zoning board received the memorandum. In that memorandum, is the language is quoted by Councilmember O'Flynn. I'm not going to repeat that. There was also the language that's in Florida Statute Section 163, 3184. I believe it's subsection 12. I don't have it in front of me.
Right.
So I'm not going to try to do a verbatim on it. And it discusses concurrent zoning. We discussed the ability, and this is where there was a difference of opinions. In the past, City Council and the zoning board have done concurrent zoning when there's a comprehensive plan and a zoning decision. We all determined that that probably would not be the most prudent. When starting to look at the scheduling dates, and I don't have the zoning board schedule in front of me, I did at that meeting. We started looking at August or September for approval of this matter. The applicant did not like those dates. They wanted a more aggressive schedule. The discussion with the zoning board then went into whether after City Council approves the hearing, or approves it, but it has not been finalized as far as, I mean, the ordinance would be signed by you, sir, but it would not have been already transmitted, and the clock would still be running on the comprehensive plan as well as during the zoning process. And that's where there was a difference of opinion of the zoning board, but ultimately the majority of the zoning board, after discussion, scheduled it for June 25th. And that was at Mr. Theriak's suggestion, because on June 26th, we have the second DCA appeal issue, and he mentioned that during the hearing, so I don't feel. So there was the discussion there, so that was the date that the majority agreed upon. I believe one member is not available, but everybody else was available, and that was pretty much the contents of the discussion.
Right. Yeah, you know, fair enough, because I did watch the tape, and we got to hear about everybody's summer vacations and grandchildren, which is fabulous. But
Yeah.
as we got through that, and room availability, and summer
sorry, yes.
vacations, and doctor's appointments, and room availability, that's what
Right.
it boiled down to.
We have to make sure that if you're in this room, we have this room booked for you guys and not the zoning board. So zoning boards like next in priority, LPAs also, and, you know, so we have a queuing system for availability. And it's also staff availability, because we have someone, recording secretary, myself, or somebody from my office, and people actually doing the television, as well as community development staff, the most important part of the staff here. So there's a lot of backup in there that goes beyond the scenes.
Right. So in concurrence with what the zoning board discussed and what we're discussing here and the tasks ahead of us, marching orders, I guess we'll get some direction, not certainly, but on the 22nd, Arlene, is the goal, is the intent.
Yeah, our intent is to give a procedure of how we can help community development get forward faster by looking at the existing contracts we have, and then also talking with David Theriak. And then upon that approval of the 22nd, we then come back to the first meeting in June, because we'll have a chance to talk with those folks and get a game plan of adoption and how we can move those priorities forward.
Fred, and then I think Peter might have something. Yeah, go ahead, Fred.
Well, my understanding of why the comp plan was dropped, we didn't go forward with that amendment, it needed to be fixed, was very simply put, and that's what I was told by community development. The issue that Mr. Theriak came up with when he reviewed it was that there was no way in the comp plan amendment or our comp plan that we could get from, if we approved density, there's no way to legally take the extra density somebody was getting, even though we already approved 2 projects, I think with extra density, and get it into the project. And it would seem to, my only objection to what's going on here, it seems like that couldn't be more than a 2 to 3 sentence correction. and to take as much time as it's taken to get a 2-sentence correction or 3-sentence, or even a simple short paragraph that does that seems a bit much, and I think we should do whatever we can to, if we have to have a special meeting, or not a special meeting, but meet a little ahead of the 4th or a little after it to accommodate this, we ought to do it, because this comp plan amendment, although it was generated by them, it was looked at by a lot of people, and nobody happened to catch that little difficulty. But I might say 2 other big projects we already approved. We didn't know we had the problem till we found out we had it. So I
Well-
think we need to do something to make it a little quicker, but
One man's problem is another man's comprehensive plan,
yeah, that's true.
not necessarily a problem.
However, we passed 2 without,
We didn't,
we,
not this council,
I thought
No.
we did on one of them.
no, including one that's now for sale.
Okay, so I complete, I had nothing to do
You're
with it.
good.
That's good. That's good.
Amy, did you have something? I'm sorry. Oh, thought I saw your hand. Okay.
Well, I appreciate, Peter, your inquiring of Audrey. I think that's fair. So the second point you're talking about is the concurrency thing under state law, right, Audrey? Is that what it comes down to? So that if there's a transmitted comp plan, you can concurrently look at the zoning. You don't have to wait for it to come back from Tallahassee.
Correct, and it's
Okay.
contingent, right,
It's
there's a
contingent.
contingency on it,
Right.
and city council, prior city council, did just that with the,
The Raptor Bay.
right, no,
Yeah,
yes, but
yes.
also, Weeks Fish Camp, the first prong.
Yeah.
Phase 1 is the one I was thinking. Yeah,
It's not a good precedent.
well, the Raptor Bay one was never completed. The Weeks Fish Camp was completed, but then they decided they want something different than what.
But it requires the comp plan that's being requested to have been transmitted to Tallahassee.
Correct. Like I said, the changes to the ordinance, and what, this
Right.
ordinance has been transmitted along with the packet to Tallahassee. There were some changes, I have a copy of them, actually physically here because I.
So I'm not asking to get into the substance,
Right,
I'm just talking
right.
about the law.
But there was
Right.
just relatively minor, but because the title block was narrowly confined, in an abundance of caution, we felt it was more prudent to send it to LPA and send it back to council
Right.
to meet the technical requirements of advertising locally, and then we would let Tallahassee know upon completion, which we'd have to do regardless.
So, Mike, my point is, if we're slowing somebody down, I want to hear about it, because I don't believe we should be. Everybody's entitled to their due process. And, so.
Good. So then, while we're looking at this, then the current laws apply, and everybody can keep moving along as they should. We'll hear, everything on the merits of their cases.
Further discussion, council, or are we good?
Well, I have a question.
Yes, Laura.
So is the comp plan amendment what's being objected to, or the folks who are developing that you don't like how it fits into the comp plan?
Under the,
What we have is a situation where we started reviewing the zoning application with our outside land use counsel. He noticed that there was a question as to how the zoning request was lining up or not lining up, as well as he wanted with the proposed comprehensive plan language. So when he showed concern, we have concerns. And that's,
So, yeah, and that's the concern that you presented to us in
Yes, sir.
February, in writing. It wasn't just his concern, it's what you presented to us.
yes.
Yeah, okay.
during transmittal.
No, and it's talking about on the white paper.
The white paper. And the concern is when we review things, no matter who the lawyer is, whether it's outside counsel, in-house, we review it for a specific form and such, but when you actually have application of the document, that's where you might say, if we only added X, Y, Z, or we didn't have X, Y, Z, we can do it. And because this is in the pipeline, we're able to make those changes now, rather than say, because I would think the applicants would be more upset if we adopted something and then outside counsel says, oh, by the way, you can't go forward, because it doesn't properly allocate density. So at that point, that creates the problem. And that would probably be a bigger problem because then you'd start at ground zero on the new comp plan amendment. So doing it while it's in progress is a lot, it might seem more, think of it as surgery if you had to be, do something while they're there or be taken out, wait a couple of months, maybe a year or two, and then go back in. It's kind of like that would be a good analogy for it.
But how come it wasn't picked up sooner? I mean,
Because the application and the zoning only provided the questions that allowed us to look at those issues. It wouldn't be, you wouldn't see it because clinically it was fine. It wasn't until you actually had something to apply it to that you realized that there was a potential problem. And like I said, it's a potential problem, so in an abundance of caution, we're going forward with this.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Fred.
one last comment. First of all, I don't mean this to be sound like I'm being critical of anybody, but my thought is this. It would only have taken 3 or 4 sentences to fix this. To say that it's going to be probably 3 months because of that. Now we're talking about expediting the whole vision for downtown in 3 or 4 months, and that's a lot more. So this, I just don't understand why we couldn't have got it done quicker. It's too late, but I think we need to try and make up a little time if we can. One of them would be have some meeting real close to the 4th, though.
Yeah, what are the dates for the meetings to get this through, and can we have a special meeting to help expedite it?
Does the zoning board schedule with you?
Well, first of all, what are we talking, expediting the comp plan, or let's go with the Terry Street issues?
Just little changes, which we have to have hearings
Fred,
and all that.
with all due respect, you keep on characterizing it as a little change, all right?
It's a big issue.
It's a big issue. You're entitled to that perception, all right? But
The big issue is whether you approve it, but
all right,
the writing's
so
small.
I don't want to be.
Nobody seems to want to talk about the specifics, but this has to do with the comp plan amendment, correct?
Okay, so November 9th,
Right.
the local planning agency reviewed a comprehensive plan amendment.
Right.
During that, they said everything looks good, they made some modifications. It went to city council for transmittal, I believe in February.
Yeah, we did.
Council took it, transmitted it to the state agencies, everything looks good, everything looks great. The zoning application is then being reviewed by outside counsel, and the way city staff allocates density and deals with certain issues in it, there's language in the land development code that was added, but was never put into the comprehensive plan. So the question is, does it create a problem? It
All
could.
right, so when we got to a specific application, special counsel opined that they couldn't do what they were trying to do in light of the comprehensive plan and the land development code. And the
City
way that administratively the community development has administered this calculation of density, is that correct?
Pretty close, yes.
All right, so this is what this change or this proposed change to the comprehensive plan memorializes the administrative process
What it
of
does.
how to calculate density. Is that what we're talking about?
What it does is it incorporates additional language in the proposed text amendment. Let me go to the page, to add a new subsection D for conversion, for density
So
allocation.
this is an important thing for the specific project that we have that's gonna come before us in a couple of weeks. But this is more important for how we're gonna do this through everything else throughout the whole
Right.
city. So this is not a small thing, all right? This is an important thing, and this is one of the things that have been brought up time and time again about how you do these density calculations, whether you do double counting, all this stuff, all right? So even though we want to facilitate, or some of us are, there's a concept that we want to facilitate this particular project, in order to change the comprehensive plan, it has some far-reaching consequences that are not specific to this applicant solely.
All right, so all right, so you're partially correct and I'm sorry for getting very
No, because
semantic on
we're
you.
talking, I want to know specifically, because we're
Yes.
just talking in generalities,
The
so.
proposal of the text change would be
Yeah.
specifically as to the Old Town Center area. It's not citywide.
So it has to-
However, you are correct that it is process and how you do application of process and dealing with this and how you handle it during concurrent viewpoints.
So that
is a policy
application of
call.
process, does it extend beyond the downtown area?
No.
This
No,
is only the way we apply this particular process, it's only in the downtown area.
For the conversion, yes.
And then we do conversions in other areas, it doesn't matter?
I don't think we do, do we have conversions anywhere else? No.
Okay.
So,
You have conversions only for mixed use, downtown, special old 41 conversion,
The specific conversion that we were discussing applies only to downtown.
mixed use.
Correct, yes.
Correct.
It takes commercial or non-residential square footage and converts it to residential units.
But that's only applicable to downtown?
This particular section applies only to downtown. Yes,
And
ma'am.
only a portion of downtown. It's
So if I might, one question you might have is, what do you want for density downtown? Laura, you were not here, but we had a presentation in February, and John explained the densities for downtown varied from 6.8, I believe, to 15 per acre, with possible bonus densities downtown. The thing Fred was joking about, but we didn't approve, in the last council is, and I'm not knocking the deal, I'm just telling you what it is. All right, you can find it for sale right now. Fantastic opportunity in downtown Bonita on 1 acre. And it's been approved for 48 units, plus 16,000 square feet of commercial. So John told us what the density downtown varied from 6 to 15. This is almost 50 an acre. All right, so, and once again, if you go back to page 20 of what you were given in January, it explains that the master plan, i.e., the plan that we keep talking about downtown, the big concern is that the master plan has not been adopted and that the currently adopted map is old. So it doesn't, we've been told the density is 15. We've had, it's not we, but previous council has had 50 come through. I think that's a big issue. At least we thought it was. Not with respect to this project necessarily, but this project is downtown. I'd rather not talk about this project so much here. I mean, because if you want, we can. But that's part of the big mismatch. So we're being told it's 15, and then, well, guess what? There's this other thing, which according to this is not approved under the comp plan, that's been used to blow it up to 50. So, you know, part of my question is, if we really want 50 per acre downtown, well, we got to have that conversation. I don't, all right? Because if we want, let's just do 50 or 100 and build skyscrapers. And let's get rid of all the other stuff that says 6.8, because that's just on a piece of paper. This is what's being used. And I don't fault anyone, including this applicant. I mean, that's, although, you know, there is such a thing as reading the comp plan, but.
Laura, did you have something
Well,
you've been
I
patient
just-
and I thought you had? Yeah.
Well, for me, 2 + 2 = 4, no matter how you want to do the math.
Right.
But it seems density conservation is ambiguous and relative to whomever is doing the math.
No, I don't think it's ambiguous. I think that, you know, when you didn't have the benefit of this, all right? But when we were here in February, we talked about what did neighboring communities have for density, what was the density on Fifth Avenue South? Not that we want to mimic Naples, but the concept of density. And the form-based code will get you to the density as it'll fall out of the density. That's one of the beauties of it, all right? You don't have to get into this. So, but that's, I might say, a major thing. So, and that major thing in many people's mind, when they open up the comprehensive plan, is clearly stated.
Okay.
It's 6.8 for certain things, it's 15 for others. You get bonus density of 5, or up to 5 for affordable housing. You get bonus density downtown in addition if you do certain improvements, and that's what happened on Mosaic, right? That gets you to 20. So, but meanwhile, we have something that the previous council approved at 50. So it's not a matter of how you interpret it, it's a matter of, I guess that kind of happened. And I'm not saying it's inappropriate or not, but it kind of happened. But we ought to get our act together and figure it out, what we want. If we want 50, let's do 50.
If I may.
Yeah.
2 months ago, I was at a presentation by the city of Fort Myers, and there's a portion of their community, if you're familiar where the Boston Red Sox used to have this
Right downtown.
the facility downtown, that portion, they're removing density, so that density is unlimited. I mean, they have.
Unlimited.
Yes.
Right, that's Fort Myers, right.
Right. Thank you. Fred?
Just to blow your.
Well,
Yeah, no, right.
let me say this.
That was Wilbur Smith Park, right? Yeah.
We,
City of Palms.
when this was pulled by Mr. Theriak, and he told me and John both, I think we were talking about the 20, and I think this figures out to be 23 or 23 and a half. But we've had more discussion about this issue and what we think about today than we've had, and this thing's been sitting around for quite a while. And I think we have a problem like this, and we got a project in the pipeline that we ought to be talking about as quick as we can.
The 22nd, is that the, can I just leave the 22nd? All right.
Spend all my time on the 22nd.
That's all
We
right.
better start at 4 if we're gonna start doing this.
We
Well,
got a
council,
timekeeper.
yeah, thank you for bearing with me on this.
Awesome.
Appreciate
No,
it.
absolutely. Thank you, everybody. Great work. And the boat is rowing in the same direction, and it's time to row quicker. I'll leave it there. Okay, item B, discussion of red tide. Peter, you're up again.
Well, I think we need to have a discussion. That's what it comes down to.
On the 22nd?
No,
Sorry, Amy, I couldn't resist.
No, I mean,
Order dinner.
I mean, maybe it's okay now, but, I mean, I'll tell you what I know, which is unfortunately in the thimbleful here, and this is a major matter for so many of our residents, including every one of our residents that uses the beach, and it's not just here, it's in Naples as well. So, we've had a situation really kind of for almost 2 months where you can't walk on the beach because of it. I got people where I happen to live in Bonita Bay in high rises who are being affected by whatever this toxic stuff is. I can imagine, well, I did get calls from people on the beach, how bad it is there. And I just think some attention has to be paid for this, to this, obviously more than just our council.
Right.
All right. But you know what's been out there? Kind of two narratives. One is, oh, you know, when Ponce de Leon came here and he was looking for, right, the fountain of life for youth, there was red tide there. And you've got, quote unquote, scientists who say, well, that's endemic, including one respected group up in Sarasota. And then you've got others that say, well, wait a minute, this is all the extra pollution that's coming down the Caloosahatchee, particularly in rainy seasons, that brings it out there, which accentuates it. And, you know, how much can we do as a council? I don't know, but I somehow, Peter and everyone, I think somehow we can start the ball rolling on a discussion. Maybe, I think I saw somewhere there was a presentation, something in the Naples paper about one of the other communities nearby, and there was a scientist, I think, I'm not sure about this, but he was located on Sanibel, and he was explaining how it's accentuated by the pollution in the water. Maybe that's a step. Get a hold of him and
we're going to have a dinner tomorrow night. The mayors of Lee County and Mayor Barnett from Naples is coming up. So I'll absolutely, let me find out who that guy is. And, you know, just for personal observation, my brother and his family were down here the last week of April. They want to go to the beach. It's kind of funny when you live down here how seldom you actually go to the beach. But that aside, we went down to the beach and we're sitting there, and we didn't. I think we did see one dead fish, but we're just going like in our throats, and we're like, "Holy cow!" You know what I mean? I'm like, if I'm gonna cough like this, why don't I just go get a pack of Marlboro Reds and just have at it, right? I mean, why am I gonna? I wasn't really coughing, but I guess you were just kind of doing this constantly. I'm like, oh my gosh. Apples to oranges. Last Friday, we take a run out to see my dad. He's on the south end of Pine Island. He's building a house out there. I think most of you know that or whatever. So you get there, you're looking at the water. It kind of looks the same. I did see some fish actually there. Then we took a run up north. We went up to like Upper Captiva. It was like you turned the page in a storybook. The water was blue, the water was green, you could see the definition. It was clear as a bell. I don't really remember exactly where that happened, but it's like the stuff that was downriver, which is us, going back to a Michigan reference, is dead fish and red tide and coffee-colored water. You got north of a Mendoza line somewhere, it was like you were in the Caribbean. And this was all within Lee County, I guess, is my upper Lee County, but it doesn't matter and it shouldn't matter. So absolutely. Thanks for bringing this up. We'll find out who that scientist is. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
As a good starting point with everybody?
That's great.
And he's a scientist? Is that what?
I think so.
Okay. Kevin Ruane will know.
I also remember way back when Trey Radel was our congressman, I went to Washington and there was a presentation on red tide, and there was a fellow from the East Coast. I'll try to dig that out. He was with one of the colleges over on the East Coast, very knowledgeable about it as well.
Right. Thanks, Pete. Fred?
Well, if you remember, back when we got, but just before the water compact that we all the cities signed into, it was red tide and all the junk that was coming down the Coochhatchee River that caused the water compact thing to be signed.
Right.
And they're laying most all the blame up at Lake O and what goes on there. And I really think it's some other things, septic tanks that happen not only to go in that river, but get into the bay and stuff like that.
I guess Kevin Ruane probably.
I think
absolutely.
I think it'd be good to have a good presentation.
Right, and let's face it, red tide is not unique to this area. Growing up in New Hampshire, where the water was so darn cold you wouldn't dare go in it without a scuba suit, we would have red tide every now and then. I have no idea where it came from, but it would happen every now and then, so it does happen. Let's drill down on it, as we say.
Yeah.
Anything down here on this? Okay.
Mayor?
Yes, Audrey, I'm sorry.
Just as a point of order, in June of 2004, City Council approved an interlocal agreement with Lee County for tourist development funding for 2 different red tide scientific studies. I have the backup, and those were red tide studies performed by Dr. Larry E. Brand and Dr. Brian E. LaPointe. And I believe one was out of FAU and the other was, like, I keep thinking Moat Marine area. I don't have that in the backup, but we have that available.
The fellow was from Florida Atlantic.
When did we do that?
We did this in June of 2004. We received monies from Lee County to be able to do it.
Excellent. Thank you, Audrey. Item C, review and provide direction on proposed issues to be discussed at the scheduled May 22nd, 2018 workshop of City Council, Councilwoman Amy Carumba, and this is Green Sheet 1805-0140.
I put it on the agenda so that you would have a chance to look at this, and I try to explain what I was doing, but the first part, 1 through 16, are considerations for objectives, which we need to talk about. So the most important thing is if there's anything that you want to put on here that's not on here, please let us know, because we can develop it a little bit, and that'll give people to think about it. So the idea is to subscribe to which ones we want, hopefully not all of them, and then when we get to the meeting to prioritize them. And when I was going through that, I did notice that some things didn't seem to fit the objective category, that they're more like tasks, like what we just talked about, for the downtown area. Those are sort of more short-term projects that we want to give some weight to, so we can think about that. And then the the second section, which the mayor has been graciously agreed to head up that section, were just some brainstorming that I had in regard to how we could help each other to work more collegially and to work through various concepts or ideas that we have and have like the discussion we talked about just today, or the kinds of things that I believe we should have more frequently or more in a more direct way. One of the things that I think is important, we should talk about our concept about taxation. We all no new taxes, though that sounds really good, but the counterpoint to that is we have to have control of expenditures. So I think that needs a discussion. But if anybody has suggestions about where you observe the way we run our meetings, the way we interact with each other, that we think will improve how we can make the best decisions that we can for our citizens, please put it on there. And the mayor, I really expect you to put a lot of input in here, because you have to herd the cats, so you have to know, you must have some suggestions there, so look at that. And then the final ones are just things that came out of the performance evaluations. And that's, again, I put them there just so you didn't think I ignored anybody that wrote anything down. And if you think anything on those things are important, we can integrate them some way. So we need feedback from you between now and the 22nd, and hopefully you'll think about any of these things and be able to offer your personal opinion and experience in that. So that's,
Great.
if we can go forward with that, it'd be great.
Great job, Amy. Great job.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
Sure.
Am I kind of hearing the most substantive conversation you expect to have is on C? And then the other ones were more or less checking the box, yes, these are still priorities. We're not going to get deep into the priorities?
Yes, we're not
Is
going
that
to.
right?
Yeah, we're not going to, I don't think we have to talk about improved stormwater management.
Right.
But I put
transport-
these little things in here so that you could think about it ahead of time, and then when you come on the 22nd, you could say, oh, I don't think that's important, or I do think it's important.
As a priority.
But we're not going to discuss these things. We just can't
Okay, that's what
possibly
I'm asking.
discuss
All
them. No. None of these can really be discussed, because we're not going to have time. Because as they are, and we need input from the staff, because they're going to come in and say, oh, I don't think we should, this is not an objective that we could work on, or it is something we're really excited about working on, we agree with you, or that's about all. I don't really think it would take more, maybe a half an hour to just go through,
Yeah.
and then we should go through and just say, yes, we like that objective, we don't. And then at the end, we'll say, well, should we prioritize them? And that's where we need your input from.
Great.
But the more, I think when we get to how we're going to interact with each other and more substantive concepts, which the mayor's going to run, that I think could take some time. Because obviously, look how long it took us to talk about one little thing here.
Right. Yeah, no, and we'll, we can do round and round and round, or we can go around the bench once and that's it, right? That's
Well,
it.
you're gonna be in
Around
charge.
the-
It's
yeah,
up- it's
right.
up to
I mean,
you.
I can do that.
Yeah, if you
I
wanna
tried to do it today and
You
got
can-
overruled, so. So I look forward to the discussion, and Amy, that's a great job. So we'll leave it for the 22nd. Okay, we're gonna move on to item 9, a second reading and public hearing of the following.
What happened to my rat on the Dixie Minute?
Oh, yeah.
We sent a note out that he's going to give a brief
Very brief.
update on
Oh, Fred, by all means,
Yeah,
please,
yeah,
please,
yeah.
please, please.
Okay, well.
That's on page 27F. I apologize, Fred, go
Is
ahead.
that
No,
what
no,
these
no,
are?
no, no apology necessary. Well, I'll start out with the good news. The good news is that we started out with 147 to just get it moved and repaired and all that. And we went from that to, if we stayed the course, we dropped a little bit, but we've got an alternate proposal that actually is 58,000 less than where we're at with the revised proposal on the original. Basically, we spent about $5,500 of city money. Carl authorized it, and Les Pritchard went in and really did a lot of drywall removal, a lot of flooring removal, and what we found was that it was far worse than we thought it was. And the floor joists are basically history. The sill plate is mush. The studs generally are, in the first few inches, are mush. The subsiding is dry rotted out, but the good news is that by this alternate approach, let me just simplify. The original approach to moving it was, it's a building that's built on a crawl space with floor joists and a little airspace below. Part of that construction is what caused a lot of this dry rot and termite damage. The good thing that happened was Sam and I were with the Flint Royal representative, Chad Flint specifically, on yesterday morning. We got to talking about it, and we came up with a solution. Actually, they did, but it was the interchange between Sam and I, and the three of us all working together. And what they said was, really, it would be better for ADA and a whole lot of other things if we sided this thing and put it on a slab. And I said, well, we don't want to put a slab in it originally. Can we have a wide footing, and then after the building's there and whenever we have a use for it, and we get the utilities in the ground and under it, then you pour the slab as an infill. But anyway, by doing that and not replacing the rotted joists and building a special stem wall foundation, which you need for a crawl space, that dropped the price down $58,000, or really from the original bid, $68,000. Then what Sam and I did, and this was fairly quickly done, but I jotted down on this separate piece of paper a budget that really says if we moved it, first thing you're going to see on there, we're currently planning not to elevate it. As if you do that, that means ramps and everything else are going to change the entire view of what that 1915 building looked like. So if you sit it more in the ground, that means we have to flood-proof the building. Now, arguably, you could say we don't have to do it till it's occupied, but if we didn't do it and we had any kind of a flood where we got a foot of water on the site, it would not do this building that we've now put some money in moving and fixing up, and would not be helpful. The biggest line item is 95 grand, but I've got in here everything from putting a walk around it, which is necessary so we have the pegs for the flood-proofing panels to go into, to even including putting a new roof on it. You could kick the can down the road, I'd say a year if you want to on that, because if it leaks, it's not going to ruin the building like the flood would. I've also said the windows, the doors in that building are shot, and they weren't original in the first place. In fact, they were cut down in height. So I've even got in the budget that we would get custom-built windows and doors and then reinstall it in the building so that it would look like it did. Whatever we do, we don't want to occupy it until the city's either got a lot of money to finish the inside, or we got a tenant that would like to pay the rent to where we can justify the investment to fix it up. One use that I think really would work down, I can see two good ones. One would be a specialty coffee shop, kind of like a locally owned Starbucks kind of thing. The restrooms would be freestanding outside when and if we build them. Or another one would be a little tavern, and Sam's rendering, he had a plaza, so you could have indoor, outdoor seating for both the coffee shop or a little tavern where you had maybe the local brewery beer in it and all that. But we did save $50,000, so I showed about where we would be at if we did all these things this year. Some of these things could possibly even come out of out of some impact fees. But there it is, and I would say it probably would go up some because I didn't put any money in for any landscaping. I didn't put the money in to build the plaza initially. I thought you could get it there, get the walk around it, and all that. If you want to shoot crap or gamble, you could say, well, let's put off doing the flood proofing a year and pray we don't have a flood this year. And if I knew we would or wouldn't, I could make money in the stock market. But that's the end of the presentation. Unless you have a lot of questions and you want more information, you probably don't want to hear. So.
Council, what's your pleasure?
Well,
Amy?
I'm not quite sure of the different choices, examples that are, so I'd like some clarification on that. But I have to mention that I did attend, this is relevant, the Art and Public Places Committee meeting, and they raised concern about the concept that was presented to us of how the building would fit on that site and all the other things that were in there. They didn't feel there was enough room. And they questioned the picture of the tables along the side, and they asked me, where did that come from? I said, I don't know who that belonged, you know, who's gonna do the tables. But anyway, they had some issues about the site planning on that. And so, I'm surprised that they're not here, because they said they were gonna come to this meeting that we're talking about it. But I think perhaps we should ask them to extend their comments to us. And again, I'm not quite sure what the three alternatives you're talking about here, Fred.
Pardon?
I'm not sure what alternatives you're presenting here. I don't
I'm
understand what they
presenting
are.
to you basically that it's our opinion. I know we had Charlie Strader there. We had John Pino there. We had, another person from the historical group that Charlie's associated with. They're all happy to not have it on a crawl space and willing to go with this slab floor, because we can put nailers on them and put wood on top of it. The nailers would be treated so the planking would look just like it does now. The only thing you have to realize is there isn't time to have another, this is it. If you don't want to do it, it's fine. Then they demolish it. The owner's going to do it. We've kind of helped him out a little bit with what we've done. If we're going to do it, Flint Doyle has got to get going right away, and we've got to waive the some kind of thing on bidding, what do you call it, irregularities or whatever, because you're going sole source.
Sole source, or because of time is critical, it's an emergency?
Either one. But that, yeah. So if you want my opinion, I think we should move it. Yes, it would be great if we had more time to put it in a different place, but I think it is a 1915 building. It was the last gas stop to Miami. And I could even see later, once it's there, as part of the thing, let the Historical Society locate a couple old gas pumps and put them out where they were. Wouldn't detract from it being a coffee shop or a little, what do you call it, a bar or whatever. But we gotta, so the recommendation I'm making, if you want to do it, I would not spend the extra money to create a crawl space, because number one, if you elevate it very much, that's an ADA problem. Number two, you're re-inviting rot and all that, although we are going to, all the repairs are going to be done with pressure-treated rot-resistant wood. So the new sister studs, little short blocks, the places we repair the subsiding low, where it's rotted, will all be treated wood, so it won't rot out in at least 30, 40, 50 years.
Right, and Fred, I just wanted to jump in, and it's been interesting to get with Dallas Revord, but I'm meeting with Dallas tomorrow morning at 9:30. Dallas is the president of the Historical Preservation Board. Thank you, Arlene. And I'm going to thrust this upon him, I guess, for lack of a better word. They have a budget, which obviously we approve, but to make this, if not their only priority, one of their top priorities, quite frankly, I'm not, I can't put words in his mouth or thoughts in the committee, but I'm going to impress upon him to get involved here with the group, with the budget that we approve, to give them financially to help with this.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, so just
Good idea.
for what that is.
But
There is one other idea that was someone suggested to me.
You're on deck, Amy.
It's real quick. We're going to leave the inside unfinished, so what could be done until we do finish it, either for a tenant or for some purpose the city wants to use for, you could take all the 4 windows plus the 3 doors are basically French doors, single French doors, and put a shadow box behind them. We put a little light in each one of them, and that can be exhibit space for Historical Society, Preservation Society, other things. Can be rotating exhibits, historical artifacts, text, whatever, old photos of old buildings, including the Blue Moon and all that.
Are shadow boxes like charrettes, or are they different?
What, yeah.
Yeah, no, just checking.
Like little-
Amy?
Like little doll houses.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, maybe I'm obtuse, but I still don't understand what Fred is saying. What we're looking at is the May 15th estimate, is that correct?
Yes.
And what you're proposing is that we move the whole building to the site that had already previously been
The original building.
selected.
Yes.
And we're gonna try to put it at grade, and we're gonna do some kind of engineering things to accommodate that with some improvements to whatever is rotting away. And are you suggesting we do anything beyond that? Is that
Yeah,
everything?
I said, yes,
This
that's
one,
all.
you're proposing we do all this stuff?
I'm proposing that you would do most of this as soon as we can. Some of the things you could not do this year.
What will we have to do when we move? That's the question. We
If
would-
you want the doors and the windows that are in terrible shape to just stay that way, you can pull that $30,000 item out.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't mind that the roof is probably leaking, you can pull that line item out.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to shoot craps on whether it's going to get flooded, you could pull out the 95.
So Fred, thank you for doing all this work.
Let me say this, there were times that I kind of wished I had never been willing to do it. But it was
So-
good, and Sam and I really,
And Sam.
Fun,
I don't
though,
think
wasn't
there's any place Sam and I disagreed. If we did, we worked it out to where we both, and Sam, you've been remarkably quiet, so.
Yeah, Sam, come on up. And Pete, you had something
Well, no, go ahead.
ahead of Sam, behind Sam, but either way.
Well, what I'd like to do, Sam Vincent, city architect, Councilman Caramba, is to address what your concerns there. I drew an accurate site plan of that site. And it's a 50-foot wide lot, and the building is 34 feet wide. And what was depicted on that drawing is exactly correct. That's exactly the way it will fit via computer programs. So everything you see will fit. So there's concern, I don't know where it's coming from, but it's not correct. This will fit on that site.
Well, that was the, and I think they were also concerned about the existing sculpture there,
It will stay.
you know, that
And so will the
they
sign.
might have to move it, is what they thought. It might not be appropriate for the site. But they will, I mean, they can
And
move it
the,
somewhere
the,
else.
the coffee, the table and chairs, that was Al Engel's idea of opening a cafe next door. That's where that came from.
Oh, but there's plans to perhaps do a cafe, and
Yes.
that's what they, okay.
Yes.
Well, I didn't have any of the answers.
That was direction previously provided by council in looking at that site, that they work with the adjacent property owners to get their input into the conversation. But I did want to say, before we picked apart certain items to keep or not keep, and I think that you were looking at overall consensus of the needs, and that's where you were getting to this level. But automatically just thinking we could take out the flood proof puts it into a whole nother level of NFIP requirements. So we just want to be careful with picking one thing and picking not another thing to keep within this proposal. I would be concerned about just pulling out floodproofing without an analysis from
I think
redevelopment.
I said that the technicality is, if it's not an occupied structure, I don't think it has to be flood-proofed or elevated. But,
Jackie's going like,
but I'm also saying,
We're in a touchy
I'm also
situation.
saying I don't recommend it, because if we did have any kind of a foot of water in there right after we moved it, we'd kind of have some of our investment get
maybe you
paid.
want to chat with Arlene later. She just said we're in a touchy situation.
We want to be consistent with what we do citywide with habitable structures and use structures, and the fact that we're a part of the CRS program. Anytime we provide any kind of variance with that, we want to make sure we're keeping that at the utmost protected level.
May I add that in conversation with Pete Hedges, if the building's unoccupiable, then it doesn't have to be flood-proofed. So as soon as you do something to have meetings and things like that in the building, you will have to flood-proof it.
Absolutely.
Thank you very
But
much.
it might get ruined while you wait.
Fred, I just had a quick question.
Yes, sir.
And I think you already said this, but I didn't. So you really got, so you, for 82,000, they're moving it and they're laying a new foundation?
Pardon?
For 82,000, they're moving it and then they're gonna lay down a new poured concrete foundation?
Yeah, that's how good a change we made, because
Okay.
when we didn't, see, before they were gonna have to replace the joists,
Yeah.
sill plates and all kind of things.
Oh, I see.
And the foundation was more complicated for the crawl space. It
Thank
was
you.
a stem wall.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Fred. Great work, and look forward to Do we need, what, just a nod of the heads? What do we need to do
Well,
here?
I think if we want to move forward, we got to sign a contract with Flint Doyle, so somehow somebody's got to make a motion. I'll
make a motion to sign the $82,000 contract with Flint and Doyle to move
Second.
it and lay the foundation.
Finding that there's an emergency.
Right,
Yeah.
with the emergency, and then, quite frankly, I say we take it from there.
Yeah, I agree.
Right?
That's where I was
Yes,
confused.
yeah.
Okay. No,
I
good.
only put this together to
Yep.
say, here's likely kind of money we're
Right.
going to have, yeah.
You got the appetizers over here,
Yeah,
you got the
exactly,
salads and the main
exactly.
courses.
Right.
Good job.
And then look about, this is a hell of a wine list over here.
Second.
Okay.
But the flood proofing's the biggest part of it.
Yeah, right. Great, Fred, so I'm making a motion on the
Second.
82,000. It's been second, third. Further discussion, roll call, please.
Councilman O'Flynn,
Aye.
Councilman Gibson,
Aye.
Councilman Forbes,
Aye.
Councilwoman Carumba,
Aye.
Councilman DeWitt,
Aye.
Councilwoman Carr,
Aye.
Mayor Simmons.
Aye. Great, okay, moving right along here.
We're getting
Item
Light
9.
speed.
Right along.
We gotta
Fred,
go
you got any more erratas you want to dig out of the pile? Okay. All right, buddy. Second reading and public hearing of the following ordinances, and public comment is allowed. Audrey Vance.
Thank you. Give me a few moments.
I know it. You notice I didn't read it for you, I'm sorry.
That's fine.
I could have, but I chose not to.
I'm going to explain that as the city clerk being cruel, because on the notice of public hearing, we do have 5 different ordinances. You council, I don't know if Councilmember Carr has heard me do the lecture, but these ads are very expensive, so we try to do as many land use ordinances as we can in one halt. So bear with me as we go through 3 of them. The first ordinance is an ordinance amending Chapter 3 of the Land Development Code, Development Standards, amendments related to complete streets, amending Section 3-5, general requirements, Section 3-6, specific requirements, Section 3-81, deviation and variances, Section 3-136, additional required submittal, Section 3-158, general requirements for limited review process, Section 3-259, general design standards, Section 3-263, bike facilities and pedestrian facilities, Section 3-269, outdoor lighting, deleting Section 3-288, official traffic way map, creating Section 3-288, liability insurance requirement, amending Section 3-289, special access provisions for Bonita Beach Road, Section 3-291, connection separation, Section 3-292, traffic impact statements, Section 3-296, local streets, Section 3-297, access to street required, Section 3-298, public streets to connect to existing public street, Section 3-300, continuation of existing street pattern, Section 3-302, street construction standards, creating Section 3-303, complete streets design, amending Division 3, surface water management, Section 3-324, generally, and Section 3-325, roadside swales, amending Division 7, public transit, Section 3-438, required facilities, and Section 3-439, exceptions, deleting from Article 5, illustrations, tables, and diagrams, Section 3-528, 4 and 6 lane arterial roadways, Section 3-529, collector streets, Section 3-530, public local streets, and Section 3-531, private local streets, providing for conflicts of law, severability, codification, scrivener's errors, inclusion in code and effective date. This is the second reading of the ordinance. The ordinance did go to the local planning agency back in April, and it was found sufficient with some changes. The changes are all codified herein, except you do have a copy of one proposed change. It would be on a document that looks like this. Okay, it should be at your desk. And this is a recommendation by staff, and this would be for provision of on-site bike facilities and pedestrian facilities, all development, interior bike facilities and pedestrian facilities are required for both privately maintained and publicly maintained roadways in accordance with the roadway cross-section set forth in LDC Section 3-302. If you go to page 12, currently, in any residential subdivisions was language that, it was gonna still be just facilities are required in any residential subdivision. This would require them in not just residential subdivisions, but all facilities would have this new requirement. Currently, it's just an encouragement. This would change it for everything.
Motion to approve with the requested change.
Second. There's been a motion and a second, and there's public comment allowed. Members of the public that would like to speak? Seeing none, further John, do you want to speak on this? Please, I didn't know.
Complete streets.
Okay. Seeing no public comment, council, further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilman Gibson.
Aye.
Councilman Forbes.
Aye.
Councilwoman Carumba.
Aye.
Councilman DeWitt.
Aye.
Councilwoman Carr.
Aye.
Mayor Simmons.
Aye.
Councilman O'Flynn.
Aye.
Okay, great.
The next,
Yes, Audrey, thank
the
you.
next ordinance is another complete streets ordinance, and again, this is a second reading. The ordinance was published in the notice of public hearing I provided you and is available at the clerk's office. I did review it and it's legally sufficient. This is an ordinance amending Chapter 9 of the Land Development Code, amending Article 2 definitions to add complete street definitions, providing for conflicts of law, severability, codification, scrivener's errors, inclusion code, and effective date. This is second reading. The local planning agency reviewed the ordinance on April 12th, 2018 for consistency with the comprehensive plan and found it consistent. City Council also heard a presentation previously from Waldrop Engineering and directed staff to go forward with the code changes here. And this was to implement the changes in Chapter 3 as just set forth.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Yes, you've heard, there's been a motion and a second. Any public comment on this? John? No? You're okay? Okay. Further discussion, council? Roll call, please.
Councilman Forbes.
Aye.
Councilwoman Carumba.
Aye.
Councilman DeWitt.
Aye.
Councilwoman Carr.
Aye.
Mayor Simmons.
Aye.
Councilman O'Flynn.
Aye.
Councilman Gibson.
Aye.
Okay.
Okay. Next one gets a little more difficult. This is, again, I have reviewed the affidavit publication. The ordinance is legally sufficient, and I'm going to read the title block into the record. This is for road impact fees. This is an amendment to Bonita Springs Land Development Code, Chapter 2, Article 6, Division 2, Road Impact Fees, amending Section 2-191, Rules of Construction and Definitions, Section 2-193, Computation of Amounts, Section 2-198, Refund of Fees Paid, Section 2-201, Exemptions, and Section 2-202, Credits, providing for conflicts of law, severability, codification, scrivener's errors, inclusion of code, and an effective date. This is a second reading. The local planning agency reviewed the ordinance at its May 10th, 2018 meeting. They did have some changes, but after the changes was found legally sufficient, and those changes related mostly to definitions and clarification in the definition section. I can explain that all if you wish, but it's pretty boring. Mostly dealing with shopping centers, and now we use the term retail commercial, but we still had shopping centers in parts of definition, so we needed to have a tie back as opposed to a deletion.
I had some questions. Earlier we had the presentation, well, a very short presentation on affordable housing, workforce housing, and it was brought up that increasing all these impact fees makes it less affordable for the housing. Just kind of going through it, we're increasing the multifamily by 57%, and most likely that's going to be a lot of where our workforce housing would be, multifamily versus the single family. And then also, we reduced the hotel motel to kind of get more in line with the surrounding community, and now we're bringing it back up from where we currently sit, 63%. So that's just taking us out of skew with the surrounding community. When we reduced it, we're kind of welcoming people in, saying, hey, we're trying to be consistent with the other area. We kind of opened it up. They maybe bought some land to put up a hotel, and now we're going to go change it, put it back right to where it was. So they started their planning, but now we're kind of pulling the rug out from under them and raising the rates again after we kind of signaled to them, hey, we're looking at this to kind of help you guys out. So I have some concerns there with, just the amount that we're increasing them, especially to the fact that, we, as a board, we've kind of said that we're not really looking at increasing the width of streets, adding more lanes, things like that. We're trying to keep this more of a, quaint community. So I'm not sure why we need to have all these, raise the impact fees for something that we don't really intend to follow through and increase the lanes. I know, we're looking for network solutions in the quadrant plan, and that's going to cost money. But I think overall, community-wide, we're not looking at widening roads.
If I may?
Yeah.
So if you look at section 2-201, which, yes, good, it's in there. That section has a couple different portions of it. First of all, road impact fees are to deal with the trips that are generated. It's not to deal with trips that don't need to be captured. So if somebody is redeveloping an area, for example, taking a house down and putting a new house, they do not pay impact fee credits. Likewise, we have a provision in there. We have two other provisions. One other provision allows city council to recognize redevelopment areas or counts enterprise zones or lower moderate housing income. If you identify the permit and you have explicit language in the development order where you're able to either reduce or exempt out of impact fees altogether. And the other is building permits that obtain a banked impact fee credit from the city, and that's a additional city project, and that's for economic development or affordable housing. It used to only be for affordable housing, but the city manager negotiated changes and made changes with the Economic Development Council back in 2011 or 2012 to amend that so it would go for more than just one. So there are alternatives. Does the fee create a problem or impact on growth? Absolutely. I mean, it is an additional cost of doing business, but the experience at the city is so is marketing and everything else, which will sometimes on a pro forma go significantly higher than even these impact fees.
So do we have to adopt the whole thing, or can we exempt a couple things that, we're trying to attract for the area?
If you tell me more of what you're doing, I can tell you whether we can do it as a separate standalone or if you need to change categories, or what are you trying to do?
Well, like I said, we've already kind of signaled to the hotel motel, that we're trying to help them out, and now we're raising it up again. And then the same thing with trying to get workforce housing with the multifamily. We're trying to, I guess,
so we
put forward multifamily versus a single family. So if we're looking to redevelop downtown,
right.
We're looking at multifamily down there.
Excuse me 1 second. Don't we have impact fee waivers downtown?
I
No,
believe most
expired?
have expired, haven't
All right,
they?
thank you.
But
Sorry.
that's a program you could reinstitute.
Okay.
Can we reinstitute it on the back of this?
All right, here's my recommendation, and then council can, this is a policy call of council. We did a study. You reviewed the study in your both meetings in April. If you remember, Mr. Mullen was down here from Duncan & Associates and explained everything. That's your basis, that's your testimony, and to meet the statutory requirements, you have this study. One of the concerns that Mr. Mullen has raised with the city manager, and so I won't speak for the city manager, but I've read the email, and that is you need to be careful because you have to comply with the dual rational nexus test, and in that you need to make sure that the proper beans are allocated for the correct beans. This is adoption of the study information. I spoke with resident Jesse Purdon yesterday, who called me on this particular subject, and I said, my best approach, if I was giving council this advice, but it's just my 2 cents, it's not, council can do what they want, it'd be adopt what the study has, because that's your defensible study, because people do get sued on impact fees. You don't want to mess around with it. And then after you do that adoption, any reductions or decreases, you certainly can do so, and we have done so in the past for hotel, motel. We could create that. We could do site-specific category, but you do that as a second standalone, so that you have the integrity of the study. But council, it's your call.
The other,
actually- oh,
sorry. Briefly looking through what Margaret had presented us in the packet, it also talked about doing percentage-based on the houses, especially single-family houses. So that way it kind of helps out with the workforce housing if they're building a smaller house, and that it's not a one-fee-fits-all for all single-family. If somebody's building a small 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, it's not the same as a 5, 6 bedroom kind of McMansion.
And one of the things I would say, is that when it comes to impact fees, I need to find the right section. Bear with with me.
So while Audrey's looking, you're saying, Mike, obviously the roads are the same. People are driving on the same roads, but they're not driving to the same house. Somebody might be driving to a $5 million place on the beach, or they might be driving to a $50,000 manufactured
Right.
home.
And if you have more
There's-
bedrooms,
but
more
if
than
I
likely you have more
understand
people, more
the
cars.
Right, well, absolutely.
generation.
But if I understand the methodology here, and you could look at the formula, that these calculations are based on trip generations. So that's what the logic is to, if you, there's a different trip generation category for single-family homes, and what, they assume certain things, and that family is gonna make so many runs to the grocery store or whatever. So that's why I think you are suggesting that we stick with the study, because we have to do it in a sort of a really objective way, and not to introduce these other aspects. I'm sympathetic to what you brought up in regard to attainable housing, but I think we can do that a different way by discounting them when we come to the point of approving a development. I thought that's what you had.
Yes, and
you had
actually what I was gonna do is point out to you section 2-193, computation of amount. If you look at, and so that's in the ordinance and in the revisions, although this section is not being revised, look at the very first sentence of 2-193 subsection A. Anybody wants to read it for me?
Where is it?
I'm looking for.
Page 8.
Thank you.
Laura Carr coming in with the page 8 reference. Good work, good work.
Okay, so Laura, read the first sentence.
It's okay.
Yeah,
Want me to read it?
yeah. Page 8.
So at the option of the fee payer,
Exactly.
the amount of the road's impact fee may be determined by the schedule below. The reference in the schedule to square foot
Okay,
refers.
yeah, and I just wanted the first sentence
Oh, okay.
because it's an optional. So you have the road impact fee schedule, but a property owner could be able to say, I'll try to find a housing thing we don't have here. You have social housing contracts where you have intergenerational type housing, and somebody could say, yes, there's 5 dwelling units, but it's really, you know, an intergenerational and co-housing. If you've looked at the co-housing movement, things that are out there, maybe in Portland, but they're out there, and they might be able to say, I have a smaller trip generation because we're compartmentalized, but we're all living together, So therefore, you should go with a number lower than the density unit here, because there's 3 elderlies that aren't gonna be driving at all, and there's 3 families where the kids are all under 15, so they're not gonna be driving. So now the car computation, instead of 10 units bringing me 22.3 vehicles, is now bringing me really closer to 5 vehicles, and I deserve lower, and that's a plausible argument.
Audrey, can you also, another possible way to do what Councilman Gibson is talking about, can you delay implementing a couple of the categories for a couple of years?
You can. City Council has done that in the past when the fee increase was draconian. We created a 2-tier, so you had one fee adopted, like a halfway fee or new fee, and then you did another fee afterwards. So in a category, let's say daycare center, I just pulled it from the hat on page 10, went from 16, actually that's a reduction, you don't want to use that one. Find me a good hotel or fast food is the ones where I think there was some big.
Oh, that was huge.
The fast food was the hugest one, or the restaurant drive-through went from 34,000 to 60,000.
76%.
Let's say we were trying to promote drive-through restaurants here because we feel we want more drive-through. I'm just making it up. Don't criticize me for this one. And that's per 1,000 square feet. We might say, okay, for a year, we'll do a delta and let's figure about 45,000 for the first increase, and then do a step up to the 60,000 the next year, and that would try to incentivize people right away. And we can do things like that. I can prepare that. Just don't have me do the math.
I know this is our second reading, but I received at least 10 emails from different people, not the same person, that said, we didn't have a notice, again, it's, people should have been paying attention, but they're kind of shocked that this is coming forth. And I was just wondering if we could maybe move and let people have some comment, like on the next meeting. We put it out there and so the folks could show up and give their
Sure, you
arguments.
can continue it.
There is no next reading, is there?
No, this is a final unless you continue it to another hearing.
and date
And-
certain.
And that way, it's a time and date certain, so I do not May 22nd,
March
please. folks,
22nd,
but-
March, May 22nd.
So I could,
We'll kick this off on May 22nd, Amy. What do you think?
if you heard earlier, I'm not, and I'm gonna
Yeah,
talk about
no.
a city attorney, I won't be here on May 22nd, so please do it on your first meeting in June.
Can I ask John one question? Just on Mike's point here. I know comes, you know, you put the sausage in a machine, it comes out. That's what he does, so it's all scientific. But why are the hotel numbers for us so much higher? Do you know? Or are they? Let's see here.
What I think that you had before was a situation where we, and everybody remembers, we had a conversation about this, I want to say a couple of years ago.
Right.
And it was determined that what we were using was out of line with other communities.
No, I know the history. I'm just about, I'm looking at the one page where it says, I'm comparing to neighboring towns.
Mm-hmm.
So 110 room hotel in Bonita is 755. And I don't know why I picked 110. I mean, just multiply them by something. But nevertheless, it says 755. It says Estero and is 439. And Collier, well, Collier's not great. You know, that's that other stuff that I don't want us to get into that again. This is like not by itself. There's more
Correct.
there's more fees that are impact fee like
Correct.
in Collier that are not technically here. Oh, I'm sorry. That's Cape Coral. Wait, Collier is 559. All right.
And that's not a
Pardon me.
total for Collier.
Still not a total for Collier, right? But why are we? Do you know offhand why we're so higher? So we're apples to apples. We're probably similar to Collier, but I'm surprised we're Estero.
In the Estero, I'd have to go back to look at this, why would be different than Estero, but Estero was looking at some version or all of the Lee County study. And this has not been, that portion has not been updated since the 2016. So whatever recent changes they've made are not reflected
on this chart.
This is what you had to show a general comparison from before.
Oh, that's a big deal.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So,
But it shows the comparison of what you're looking at. So this is really what you looked at. I forget what part of
But
2016.
they just refreshed the Lee County study.
Correct, and they adopted.
Well, forget about what they adopted because you know they went through the whole gyration. But what did their study show? Because you know they can adopt
the
nothing.
Lee County study or the?
Lee County thing, yeah.
Let me see if I have.
You're saying it's not this comparison.
No, sir. I think.
Not the 3745. It probably would be closer in line with the number you have.
Oh.
Because the 3745 was your reduction in September of 2016.
No, I'm sorry, Audrey. I'm on one of the things that was handed out. It says impact fee comparisons.
Email.
An email, and were two attachments, and one of them had. You don't have it, okay.
Yeah, I was
And one of them has a 110 room hotel. It has like 8 things, as 8 different types of single family, multifamily, et cetera, et cetera. Then there's West Palm, Jupiter, Naples, Lee, Estero. Are you saying, John, those are not the updated Lee numbers in there?
Correct.
Oh, well, that's a big deal.
Correct.
Those
And
are
I thought I apologize. I
Okay.
thought I had printed out the Lee County road ordinance. I've got the EMS and fire fees and
Okay,
schools,
that's
but
all
I
right.
did.
All right, well, forget about my comparison because I know those
But-
are higher.
Oh, thank you, Mike.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And without having the specifics, I agree with you.
I thought we were way above Estero, but it looks like we're not, so, okay.
Well, I mean, you know, we've got some questions, we've heard from some concerns, we've had good input, we've had a nice dialogue here, but there again, where we're making a 99-year decision here, I would be in favor of continuing this to the next meeting to get more input, some more time to sharpen the pencil.
See if we can get Lee County's updated fees.
Right,
That's
right.
fine.
Well-
What I would look at, though, just as a point of reference is, You hire Duncan and Associates because they know how to make the sausage. And what they've done here is they've created an accurate list that is based upon uses as they are generated in the ITE manual for traffic, and compared that with the level of service improvements that you would need to make for a certain growth. Changes to that are always optional, and the city attorney outlined a couple of ways to do that. However, if you're going to be creating a situation where you are charging accurately based upon what a single family house will generate, this is the study. If you want to have him break it down into greater detail, because I will tell you that there are a lot of places that provide a lot more detail than this study, but it makes it a lot more complicated to administer, and things are not as straightforward. Someone had brought up the idea of smaller houses paying a lesser impact fee. Well, Palm Beach County does that. They have it set up into a tier where certain size houses up to a certain square footage pay a certain amount. The larger the house, the larger the fee. You find a lot of houses that are 5 square feet beneath the next tier, but that's neither here nor there. You just see people adapt to what they have. You can always make things more detailed, which makes them more accurate. And if you're looking to maybe shift some of that overall burden more accurately, that's always an option. Just know that if you look at artificially lowering or raising certain fees, your consultant has written several emails that concern him if you do that. And if you do decide to go down that direction, he's asked that maybe you look at how we distribute all the fees and how the overall approach is taken. These are all options to you. They're policy calls, but you have the science behind how these are calculated. You've got somebody that's very well respected that's giving you this study. Unfortunately, when you look at impact fees, roads aren't cheap. And even a proportionate fair share, to use an incorrect term, isn't cheap. So if you're going to have essentially growth pay for growth, or for that portion of the service that that house or that square footage of businesses is contributing, this is the way to go. If you're looking at doing a more detailed, perhaps shifting your approach in how you do this, those are always options that are available to you. But the roads will need to be improved with capacity. Schools will need to be built. These things need to be done. It's just a matter of who's going to be writing the check and which account it's coming from.
And I'd like to underscore that. So we all know what the total tax bill here is in this town. It's not just to us, it's mostly to other people. And the question is not whether this money is going to be spent for improvements, the question is who's paying for it. So I happen to live in a community that pays like $35 million a year in ad valorem taxes. And I'm not interested in them subsidizing a situation where growth is supposed to pay for growth. And my personal view is I'm not interested in putting a luxury tax on large houses, by implication here, particularly when we all know most of those large houses are occupied maybe 4 months a year. So I'm for whatever council wants to do, but I think, in my view, unless those Lee County numbers come in, and I mean the real numbers, not what the county commission has cut, so we're not looking to emulate that. But if we're in the ballpark with Estero, we already know we're in the ballpark with Collier. This is what the science gives us. I'm not interested in having the property taxpayers in Bonita Springs subsidize this.
Okay. Fred, I know you had something.
Yeah, I have something to say, and I'll cap it off with a motion, which I think everybody will not be upset with. But I think, for example, if you take the hotel area, Bonita Springs, the core of Bonita Springs, which I call Beach Road,
41.
Old 41, that area. What we have is small little hotels or motels, 80 roomers, 100, 110. We do not have the big 300, 250 full-service hotels here. We need at least one. We've got one, and I'm glad we got it, the Hyatt up at Coconut Point. But that's not what I call in the core. So first of all, my motion is that we do not make this a second reading, or we continue the second reading to the next meeting till we can get more input. But I think there's certain areas of the city that I personally think we want to create an inducement till at least we get a few things more going than we got. And then go ahead and put it up. But right now, we still, the new motel that's being built down by, what is it, the old Albertsons? It's around 100 rooms, isn't it, John?
It's just over, yes, sir.
Yeah. So we need some big, at least one big one, and maybe two, to attract more business and tourism. and
I
all
think
that.
we should focus on what the purpose of an impact fee is, and that is to pay for road improvements or road, I don't know if it's really
Capacity.
improvements, but just accommodate the needs of the driving public. And I agree with Deputy Mayor O'Flynn in regard to just being sure we follow the formula as best we can, using the technology that has been developed way before we got on the council and probably will exist long after we are gone. And I do not think that, whereas I know that in the past, abrogations of impact fees have been used as economic development incentives, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't do that in the future, but I think that should be handled on a case-by-case basis. And I'm sure we can figure out something if indeed somebody comes and says we want to put a 300-room hotel where, I don't know. We could handle that separately. And I feel the same way about attainable housing, that we can have other mechanisms. So I think we should go forward with this. If we're totally out of line with the other people, either they're using a different formula, that we should be in line, you know. And it's not, I don't object to looking at that, but I think we should go forward with this.
Fred?
I've made a motion if it could.
I'll second.
Okay.
Okay, just repeat your motion, Fred, so we're
My
clear.
motion,
Thank you.
very simply, is that we at least continue this second reading to at least the next meeting to see if we have any more thoughts on it.
Citizen input, whatever we want to call it.
Whatever you wanna-
Okay.
Outreach.
And Mike seconded that. Is there further discussion on that, council? Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Carumba?
Aye.
Councilman DeWitt?
Aye.
Councilwoman Carr?
Aye.
Mayor Simmons?
Aye.
Councilman O'Flynn?
No.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Councilman Forbes?
Aye.
Okay, moving right along. Audrey?
Thank you.
you,
Gotta
council.
make sure I'm in the right ordinance.
I think it's D, is that right?
I know, I want to make sure I'm at the right. It's like my biggest fear is I put the wrong notes on the wrong ordinance. Okay, so this is I'm going to read the title block into the record. This is an amendment to Bonita Springs Land Development Code, Chapter 2, Article 6, Divisions 3 and 4, combining regional and community parks into a unified parks impact fee, amending Section 2-235, definition, Section 2-236, imposition, Section 2-237, computation of amount, Section 2-239, benefit district established, Section 2-242, refund of fees paid, Section 2-244, exemption, and Section 2-45, credits, deleting Sections 2-274 through Sections 2-288, the former community parks impact fee provisions, providing for conflicts of law, severability, codification, Scrivener's errors, inclusion in code, and effective date. This is second reading of the ordinance. I have reviewed the affidavit publication. It is on file with the city clerk, and it is legally sufficient. The local planning agency reviewed this ordinance at its May 10th, 2018 meeting. We've discussed this ordinance previously. I'm available to answer any questions, should you have any, as to the drafting of the document or of the study.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Further discussion? Public input? Public comment? Seeing none? Roll call, please.
Councilman DeWitt?
Aye.
Councilwoman Carr?
Aye.
Mayor Simmons?
Aye.
Councilman O'Flynn?
Aye.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Councilman Forbes?
Aye.
Councilwoman Carumba?
Aye.
Okay. Blistering pace, moving right along.
Okay, as second reading of the following ordinance and public hearing. This is an ordinance of the City of Bonita Springs, Florida, extending ordinance number 17-12, the temporary moratorium related to the Bonita Beach Road visioning study and quadrant study in the comprehensive plan amendment approved May 3rd, 2017, as ordinance number 17-06, continuing the moratorium on the processing of any zoning or other community development applications within the Bonita Beach Road Quadrant Map or Bonita Beach Road Corridor Area, which is the network zone map, providing for severability and effective date. Council, you may recall, maybe it was the LPA, not council, I'm sorry. Section 2 is the only part that was changed. I had some run-on sentences that made that almost impossible to read. I have taken it into 6 or 7 word sentences now to make it a little easier. But this is the meat of it, which is this ordinance extends the temporary moratorium. The temporary moratorium is a result of when we adopted the Bonita Beach Road Visioning Study and Quadrant Study as an ordinance on May 3rd of 2017. One of the people did challenge it, which they have a right to do, Division of Administrative Hearings, that there's settlement discussions. The case is still pending, though. I've worked with Mr. Theriak on this and concurred that it made more sense to continue forward with a moratorium at this time until we finish. And this could be either extended again through this formal action, or it will be automatically dissolved in the event that the comprehensive plan amendment becomes final, because when you're dealing with a challenge, even the city council adopted it, it's not in our comprehensive plan until such time all the court cases are complete on it. And that's mostly for Councilmember Carr, so I apologize if it's redundant.
Okay, second. There's been a motion and a second. Public input, public comment, public discussion. Okay, seeing none. Further discussion, roll call, please.
Councilwoman Carr.
Aye.
Mayor Simmons.
Aye.
Councilman O'Flynn.
Aye.
Councilman Gibson.
Aye.
Councilman Forbes.
Aye.
Councilwoman Carumba.
Aye.
Councilman DeWitt.
Aye.
It's public comment.
Yeah.
They're ready
Well,
to
we've
vote.
done our second public comment, so Audrey, we're going to stick right with you for city attorney's report.
Okay, thank you again for the term sheet. Council, I look forward to working with you until I retire. I want to point out at May 22nd during your workshop, I will be from May 22nd to 26th along with some of your community development staff at the Division of Administrative Hearings in Tallahassee, Florida on the BG Mine case. So if you're looking for Mr. Theriak on May 22nd for your workshop, he is not available, as well as I am, but Carly you'll be in the fine hands of Carly. I also want to point out that on May 29th, Mr. Theriak and I will be in court on the BG Mines case on the ouster. This is where City Council, again, before Councilmember Carr, so filling you in a little bit, where you denied a petition to contract out of the city boundaries, and they filed a petition to court, and we filed our response. That's me as lawyer. As historian, I just want to point out something that was part of your discussion today in the downtown area. When council originally, not this city council, but city council in the past, purchased the Bamboo property, it did so with the intent to sell. We did go out to RFP. I'm just giving you the history of this. And at that time, I hired Charlie Siemens, who is a lawyer that did design work. He did mostly Boca Raton, but he's done some other communities. And 2 lawyers from his office is David Theriak and also Nancy Stroud, who you're both familiar with. It was set up where we were going to have a term sheet, and once we got the term sheet, we were then going to go with the comprehensive plan and then the zoning. So that type of process for the downtown. I just wanted to add that to supplement your downtown discussing. But that was how everything was structured, and of course, the Great Recession occurred, but it didn't go forward. But I wanted to let you know some of the history of why things did not occur. There was a systematic and organized, not for necessarily those parcels, but for other parcels in the downtown. It wasn't because of lack of interest. It was a design that during the Great Recession ended. Other than that, I also have a case that is of interest, and it talks about, it's the City of Ponce Inlet. That case, I believe, is now final. I don't think there were, need to check to make sure there were no appeals filed. That's a case dealing where there was a comprehensive plan amendment, new council was elected. The city did not go forward because there was a new council elected, resulting lawsuit, and at this point, Ponce Inlet has prevailed. I want to point out to you, these cases, you win these cases, but it does take many, many years. So I'm going to provide council in your inbox a copy of that order, just so you can see it, and just understand that when you're going into your budgeting time.
Immaterial, but for me it's important, or just, is that Volusia County? Is that near like New Smyrna Beach, Daytona Beach? Where's
Yes, sir.
Ponce Inlet? Okay, okay, okay.
Your geography is very good.
No, I wanted to because I know that area, but it's been a number of years, so I just wanted to,
And the
geographic in my
litigation,
head,
the
yes.
ensuing comprehensive plan
Right,
litigation
well.
is a number of years too.
I was just gonna say, that I didn't know. When did that start?
I believe.
Roughly.
Well, the comprehensive plan amendment process started in 2004, and I believe the litigation started in 2006 or 2007.
Oh, four? Okay, okay.
So I just wanted to point out that, I'll be gone, there will be some litigation continuing on, and it does, many of these take time, and attorney fees, of course, take time also. And at this point, what the court has done is they've reserved ruling on attorney fees. So I've been dealing with our finance director, basically, who wants to see when we can get some of this, and it's like, you may have to wait decades.
Awesome, great. Anything for Audrey? Yeah, decades,
Decades.
right?
Time moves slowly in the court system, more slower than it moves in local government.
I just want to thank Audrey, first of all, for all her work, but also particularly for her work on what we had in the green sheet today and the transition thing. It's very much appreciated.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thanks, Audrey.
Yes, thank you, Audrey, and stop smiling.
Yeah, right. What's there to smile about? Darn it, we've been here since 9 o'clock. No. Thank you, Audrey, very much.
Yes, sir.
City managers report.
I have 2 items. I'll keep them very brief. The mayor received a letter from the Division of Human and Veteran Services from Lee County, who administers our CDBG block program. And we have been advised by the county under the requirements of HUD that there was no concerns or fact of finding. So we'll be responding to this, that our program is in compliance with the HUD regulations. And that's a requirement that they notify the mayor of this review. And staff will be reporting back to Lee County on the council's behalf in acceptance of the report. Additionally, at 12:51 a.m., I received an email from our ISO representative for CRS, and it is an email of congratulations that our annual report, which is now required that we're our level 5. We previously, you may have been familiar, we previously did not do these annual recertifications, but now that we have moved up to a new level, it's another requirement. And you all received in your mailbox a report that we worked on in conjunction with our consultants on the status and update. And we've also placed it on the website of how we're moving forward with updates to the LMS and other flood control measures, and that's available on the website as well. But that we have been reviewed for our annual review, and we are completely in compliance with all regulations of the CRS program, which leaves us into effect until next year for another midterm review. And then after that, we'll have our 3-year overall review, which would provide us for hopefully with our continuance of a level 5.
Okay, great.
Which does result in a 25% savings for our residents in the special flood high hazard areas of our city.
Okay, great. Carl, anything? No, sir. Okay, wonderful. Okay, mayor and council reports. Amy, we'll start with you, please.
Just a couple comments. I did look at, and the Horizon Council, if anyone wants to go, it is May 18th at 8:30. All right, and that's at the Florida Southwestern State College, and they're going to talk. Their speakers are, I think they have a panel on housing. And I did want to mention that at the same time, on Friday, May 18th, there's a crew meeting which I usually attend, and it's going to be at the firehouse. So I don't know if anybody wants to go to that. I looked at the agenda, and they are going to talk about land acquisition updates, Conservation Collier and Conservation 2020, and I know that, we're interested in that. So if you so anyone wants to observe that, that would be great. And I want to thank, and I did attend my first 2 Citizens Committee members, so first one meetings, which was the Art and Public Places, and I thank everybody for receiving so warmly, and they do a lot of interesting work there, and I look forward to working with them. And my second meeting was the Veterans Advisory Committee meeting, and that is quite a committee that it seems to be very well organized, and we're looking forward to, of course, the Memorial Day celebration, and then also the Veterans Day 100th anniversary in November, so you'll hear a lot more about that going forward. And again, those are two really good committees, and thank you for the warm welcome that I received from both of those committees.
Dynamite. Thank you, Amy. Great job. Greg?
Nothing today, sir.
Nothing today?
Nope.
Laura?
Nothing today, sir.
Nothing today. Okay.
I just had
Peter?
one or two. I had a great chat with Cecil Pendergrass called me yesterday, and we had a great chat about the resource officer issue. And he explained that the distinction he was raising related to much more the city of Cape Coral and the city of Fort Myers that have in-place resource officer functions, not necessarily the unincorporated areas, not necessarily the incorporated areas outside of that, in terms of who's paying for what.
And Pete, I'm sorry, but that's because they have their own police departments?
In his view.
Or not in yeah, okay,
view,
I got
in
you.
his
Yep.
view. So I thought that was very encouraging. One other thing I'll just be slightly cryptic about, which is I'd encourage you to talk to Arlene about what can happen when emails get floated up to Fort Myers. And the third point is just to say, for clarity, yesterday at the zoning board, they tabled nothing. A continuation was requested by others, and the zoning board had no authority to proceed yesterday. That's all I had.
Okay, great. Thanks, Pete. Mike?
I just got an email in response to the presentation John Dolmer did earlier about the ADA. It just brought up a point that you were presenting the Department of Justice, the federal, but they're saying that Florida has a higher standard in some cases, and you didn't reference that, especially when it came to the ADA spaces. You were using the federal numbers when Florida is higher. So if we can look at that more closely and make sure we're following the most strict requirements. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Mike. Fred?
Yeah, I've got three little quick items. One of them at the regional planning, or the Sterile Bay Management meeting yesterday, a little interesting footnote, and that was that 2020 boards, somehow they're not being able to get a quorum at their meetings. I don't know if anybody's heard that, but we need to look into it.
You mean the Classic Committee, the one that?
All I know is that they brought up, wasn't me, that they haven't been able to get a quorum for a number of months, so.
Which meetings are those, Fred?
The 2020 meetings, they're bored.
They have a committee called.
Yeah, right, yeah,
Classic.
okay, yeah, right.
Well, somebody else I'm sure has more contact with them, and that's why I'm bringing it up to you.
Drill down, Fred.
Second one is South Florida Water Management is going to put two big injection wells, one in the Kissimmee River and the other in Caloosahatchee. And it's 24-inch diameter. They'll go down to 3,500 feet or more. And the idea is that they will pump water in a flood or whenever the water level is high and push it down into the boulder layer. And it goes wherever it can go with the least resistance, which could be back up. These wells cost $4 million a pop. But they've said that if this is demonstrated and tested to do well for reducing, what they're trying to do is come up with a way to keep Lake O from overflowing or its level going up. So if this works well, their plan is to then consider putting a well at the Imperial River to help us. And that would be something that we would want to ask Lee County to do, put in their little water modeling project, is determine what effect that really will have on like the Irma kind of a flood. One, keep putting more wells in until you find out how much it takes to get the water to go down. Then the last one was something that came up just as at the announcement end of the MPO Executive Committee meeting that I kind of attended by default because neither Councilman O'Flynn or the mayor could be there. But Brian Hammond at the end of the meeting announced that There is $150 billion in, 50 billion I think was in Tiger grants, and 100 billion in build grants, which he didn't describe what the difference is, that are going to be coming out almost any time, and that that the grant size would probably go up to $10 million a pop. But the thing is, this is for projects that have gone through PD&E or close to being done with a PD&E, or you don't have to have done it by PD&E, but you have to fill in a lot of more blanks in the application to get consideration.
If I can
So
just,
Brian will be, we'll be seeing him someplace soon, I think, at the MPO meeting. So any of you that are there, you may ask him for more information on it.
so we, Arlene, you might want to recite a little bit on that. So we, meaning Matt, Arlene, and I met about, it's all called Build now. We had that, all that information. You might want to brief council a little bit. I should have done that.
We do have the notice that the funding will be coming out shortly, and I think it's in July. And we have a contract with Alta, so we are doing some
Yeah.
outreach to them, and they have previous grant experience with previously Tiger, which is now Build, to get some information from them, and we're looking to bring something back to you to your first meeting in June with some
Good.
ideas of how we can move forward.
And the other thing to mention is, Collier just got a big Tiger grant. Actually, Don Scott's wife, is it Tiffany?
Trinity Scott.
Trinity was in the middle of that. So we talked to Don, talked to Trinity, and it ended up, we being Arlene,
Right.
ended up back at Alta, because they had used them.
And when appropriate, we'll let you know that we've heard from Collier that having your United States delegation involved in the process is helpful. So as we know more information, we'd like to reach out to you all on that and
Yes.
as that moves forward.
Absolutely. That's
my
with
report.
an exclamation point. Thank you, Fred.
We're on top of it.
No, absolutely.
Unless you want more Dixie Moon.
Now I want you to drill down on the quorum at 2020. That's, but thank you. No, bring that up. That's important.
Yeah.
I just wanted to mention, and we've had some good discussion, but I don't think nearly enough, or certainly enough action, whatever the case may be, on Terry Street with the sidewalks and the striping for the children. So if that needs to enter our budget talks this summer for the budget workshop, Greg, you had mentioned it again today. Mike, I know you've mentioned it, and others. I would like to make that a focus. We know what we're trying to do down through there. We know what we're ultimately going to do. We know what's going on down there, and if anybody's ever driven down during what, and it's kind of a later start, so you have children coming in at a later time, which also means kind of people are trying to get to work too, right? So you got kids trying to get to school, people trying to get to work, kind of around that 8:30, 9:30 time frame. So definitely want to take a look at that and just kind of plant that seed in people's minds. Hopefully we can do something there or get something done there, whatever the case may be. I wanted to bring up that Congressman Rooney, I spoke with his office yesterday. He's going to be here at our Memorial Day celebration. He's going to actually also then go down to Naples at 10 o'clock, so he'll be speaking to us at our celebration early on in the program, so I wanted to mention that to those folks of you that didn't know. And I just wanted to once again say, Carl, thank you for your service to our city. Absolutely, thank you. Enjoy your retirement. I don't know if you still have those motorcycles, but I know in the past we had talked about some of those bikes that you'd get fired up and take some rides across the country. So Godspeed, my friend. Thank you for your service. Thank you, thank you, thank you from the bottom of all of our hearts, and enjoy your time. And we look forward to seeing you again and helping you in any way that we can, whatever you may do in the future. So God bless you. God bless you, buddy. Thank you very much. That's what I have. Now, approval of the minutes.
So moved.
So moved in a second. Further discussion?
I got a comment, no.
Oh, yes. Do you want to drill down on the minutes, Fred? Or are we good? Okay, roll call, please.
Mayor Simmons.
Aye.
Councilman O'Flynn.
Aye.
Councilman Gibson.
Aye.
Councilman Forbes.
Aye.
Councilwoman Caramba. Aye. Councilman DeWitt.
Aye.
Councilwoman Carr.
Aye.
Okay, public comment. Third and final public comment. Boy, you're a trooper, Pano. I don't care what anybody says about you.
And I'm not used to talking this much, I have to tell you. to start off, I just want to say thank you for postponing the impact fees until a later date. This will give me an opportunity to inform my membership that they have an opportunity to have input on this. Secondly, my partner Aaron Thomas is a water keeper, and he tests the Imperial River regularly, and we work closely with the water keeper organization. So if you are interested, please let us know. We can help. I, in the past, worked with the FWC and Marine Research on red tide and have some insight into that. If I can be of help, I'd be happy to. And third, I'm a young kid and I'm in a schoolyard, and a bully comes up to me and he says, "I'm going to punch you in the face or I'm going to punch you in the stomach. Your choice." And I say, "I don't want either." He says, "You don't have a choice. I'm going to do it." I says, "Okay, punch me in the stomach." So he punches me in the stomach. Teacher sees it. She comes running out. She says, "What the heck's going on?" Bully says, "I had permission. You know, we both agreed I could punch him in the stomach." Well, that doesn't reflect actually what happened, does it? In respect to what happened at the zoning board, after I looked at the video and watched the video, the applicant wasn't given any options. As a matter of fact, I watched the city attorney and the other attorney say that in past situations like this, it could have moved forward contingent on your approval. But that wasn't done, and that did delay the process. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Other members of the public that would like to speak? Going, gone. Seeing none, motion to adjourn? So moved. We are adjourned. Thank you.